so that I don't hear your background noises. If maybe you can see that I didn't note you or Dr. Arthur didn't note your hand whilst it's raised up, then you can just unmute and start speaking just to get the attention, and then I'll realize that somebody wants to say something. So yes, hi everyone, I'm Miss Shabani. To those who forgot, I doubt you remember my face, but yeah, I don't remember your faces either. I'm sorry about that, because we never got to see each other for a long while. But yeah, I'm glad, thank God, to the laptops, to the internet, to the data, that you are able to still carry on with the teaching and the learning, so that you don't sit idle for the rest of the year. So make use of this time, because this might go on until whenever. So we're not sure or certain as to when this will end. So you better get used to the new normal, that you might need to attend classes in this way, and this works as well. So don't kick it away and say it doesn't work, it's not possible. It is possible. Myself and Dr. Arthur, we are students at other universities, and this is the way we attend the classes, and this is the way we write our assessments. So it is possible. So don't just, I just want to give you the confidence that this is nothing not normal. This is the normal for others, like me and Dr. Arthur, and it can be a normal for you guys. So yes, today we're going to revise on process costing. So I use the term revise because I've posted a lecture on it before. It's on Blackboard. So even now, if you go to Blackboard, you will find it. Actually, Dr. Arthur posted it for you guys. So that's why I say we are actually revising this topic, so that, you know, you get the memory back, because you never got time to consult, and this is the time that you're going to use now. But then you are allowed that after this class or any day after today, you can send me an email or send Dr. an email or WhatsApp, and then consult. So don't sit back and wait for the next class. If you have questions, you know, use us. You know, we are here for you. We've got the data for you. We've got the time for you. So anytime, WhatsApp us, email us, and we'll attend to your problems. So with the process costing, so in the class, I didn't mention that, you know, there's a difference between the job costing and the process costing. And the job costing, you've done that, I think, last week with Doctor, you've revised that topic. And then, which is like a unique product, is one product, it's manufactured alone, and that's that. But then now with the process costing, it's a different thing. So I usually make an example of the Simba chips. You know, many potatoes are put in the manufacturing process, and then a batch or a huge amount of them are made at once. So that is the process costing. You know, it's quite a number of items that are manufactured at the same time. So there you can read again or revise again your memory, you know, on what job costing is and what process costing is, and the examples as well. And then that picture shows you as well what happens or what is the process. You know, if it's job costing, which is like producing one car, manufacturing one car, for example, you start with it and then it goes straight to the finished products once you're done with it. But then with the process costing, it might move from process 1 to process 2 and process 3. So that item, it needs a process to be fully manufactured. If we're talking about the Simba chips, there's a process where it's just a matter of putting in the potatoes. Maybe there's a machine that peels them off, you know, the skin off. That's fine. And then obviously there's another process which spices them up to say this is salt and vinegar, this is a barbecue, this is chicken. And then there's a process where now it's only packaging. So that is process costing for you. Things they're manufactured in a batch, and then they go through various process until they are done. So that is the summary of what process costing is. So in terms of, this is the T account or the process account, which will have to, you'll see a lot of questions asking you that prepare process account. So whatever that your inputs, you know, your raw materials, your labor, your overheads, that form part of you manufacturing those items, that will go on your debit there. I don't know if you can see my cursor. Can you see it? Doctor, can you please confirm if you can see my cursor?
Yes, I can see
Okay.
your cursor.
All right, thank you. So this is the process account, and then this is the input. So anything you put into that process of process A. If we are talking about the Simba chips, it's the process A is about the peeling, you know, peeling off the potato skin. So that everything you're gonna put in that process will go here, will be input. It goes on your debit. This is an asset account. And then as soon as you're done with the peeling, then it's now an output. How many potatoes did you put in for peeling? It was 100 potatoes. And how many did you manage to peel off, you know, to successfully peel off? then it's 100 again. That is your output. But then along this process, a lot of things can happen. You may put 100 potatoes to peel off, and then you manage to peel off, or the machine or the people who are peeling off manage to only peel off 90. It's possible. I mean, there are losses. Some may fall off. Some of them, maybe they are rotten. They won't be fit to move to process B. So that means your output there might be different because you've incurred the losses. Then you will, at the next slides, we'll talk about, what types of losses that can occur within these processes. So after process A, we move to process B. Whatever that was output then process A can be an input in process B. Now is now frying, now they're frying the potatoes. So how many did they put in? It was 90 potatoes, and then how many managed to come out, successfully completed? It could be 85 now. It's possible again that you may incur losses again here. So then you've got 95, and then now moving to the spicing, salt and vinegar, barbecue and chicken. So that is the input of the 85 potatoes, and then you manage to spice out maybe 80. It's still possible. Every process usually incur losses. So I'm trying to prepare your mind that you're going to see something relating to the losses. That means you might find assignments and assessments testing your knowledge about the normal losses that may be incurred in these processes. And then once everything is done, the spicing is done, and the packaging as well is done, that's when you've got a final product, which goes to the account, finished goods stock. This is the inventory where you see in your financial statements. The line item inventory is made up of this. But then again, sometimes maybe at the end of the day, yes.
Can you please zoom your slide?
I must zoom it. Okay. Is it better?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I was still saying, sometimes at the end of the day, you might think, you might do process A, because obviously a big company will have many potatoes to peel off and to fry and to spice and to package everything. It is possible that you can start working here, finish only process A, and then you start with the input, you don't complete the whole process. I think there's a hand, Doctor. Okay,
yes.
No, it was a message. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, it's when people when you a guest that's not part of the team wants to join the meeting, so they're sitting in the lobby. So you have to admit them.
Are you managing that part of admitting
yes,
them?
So if I see somebody, I'll just admit them as they come along.
Perfect. Thank you.
But Shondi, there's a hand. Can you just lower your hand if you don't have a question anymore? Shondi?
Shondi, yes, I see.
Is there a question? Okay, there's not a question. Okay, sorted.
Okay, because when I'm on the screen, I cannot see the hands up and everything. So now I'm trying to locate that document I was sharing. Are you guys seeing it? Can you see it, Doctor? I think I found it.
We can see.
Yes, everything is there. You can continue.
Okay. So I was still saying it is possible that you can do process A today successfully and move on to process B, but then it's also possible that by the end of today, you are not done working with process B. So then that means the next day we'll have things such as opening, or we'll have work in progress stock, So that also sits in your balance sheet sometimes. Usually you'll find in your normal financial statement, you will see a line item inventory or finished stock, or in the inventory, maybe there will be a note. If you go to your accounting note, you'll see there's still work in progress. Maybe that day was the year-end date, and they need to know how much of the items I was still working on, because this is still your asset. You can still sell this even if it's not in its complete fashion. So I think that's a summary of what to expect in the next slides. I think I just gave you a whole summary of what to expect in the next slides, so that it should be quicker for you to, to understand. So then we've got normal losses. We spoke a lot about normal losses in the previous slides. What are the normal losses? These are the ones you expect to have every day. If you're saying you manufacture every day those Simba chips, you know that I will lose about 10%, and that 10% is my normal loss. So when you see 10% being lost, you are not surprised. you won't be surprised at what went wrong. You know that is the norm. You know that is in your planning. You know that I'm going to lose 10%, and then we have also in other words. Sorry. So in other words, why did it move? Just wanna go to the bottom there. So in other words, your expected output will equal the actual output, because you know that from the potatoes, 100 potatoes that are introduced into my process, I will lose 10%, which is 10 of them. So I know that my expected of 90, my actual of 90 should equal my expected of 90 as well. And if that's not the case, then there's a problem. It's either there's an abnormal loss or there's an abnormal gain, which we'll just discuss now. So this slide, now that I've zoomed, I just need to keep using the arrow up and down. So this slide just explains why process costing and everything. Just read in your own time. Same there. So now, like I've mentioned, if your actual output or your chips, or let's say we're talking about process A, your peeled off potatoes, if they do not equal what you expected, to get the 90, so we could either have an abnormal loss. What is an abnormal loss? Anything you didn't expect. Sometimes there could be faults in the machinery that we experienced during the day. It could be that maybe the power went off and we're not used to not having power during our manufacturing hours, and that disturbed the whole process. This is why maybe we ended up not getting the 90 that we expected and maybe got the 85 instead. So that means the 5 units or the 5 potatoes are the abnormal loss that were incurred, and that you must write off in your income statement. And with the normal loss, because you know it's part of my production, you carry that through to your cost of production with the normal loss. You don't record that separately in the income statement, because you know that part of me manufacturing 100 Simba chips or using 100 potatoes in process A, a part of my production, 10 will be lost. So that is the cost that you must carry over. That means when I ask you how much does it cost you to manufacture or to peel off the 10 potatoes, the 100 potatoes, you tell me a price of the 100 potatoes, not the 100 minus the 10 loss that you expect. But when it comes to the abnormal loss, then you must write it off to your income statement as a period cost / an expense. Then we've got an abnormal gain. This is where now, instead, you do know that I expect 10 units or 10 potatoes not to be successfully peeled off in process A, and it happens that you manage to peel off 95 of the 100. So that means there's 5 extra that you gained and you are not expecting it. So that will be an abnormal gain. And that also, you must recognize it on your profit and loss, and it will be a profit, of course. No, on your profit and loss account, and then you're going to present it as a profit because it's an abnormal gain. It's not a loss like you expected. Now it's a gain for you. Then this is the formula that you're going to use a lot as well. Keep it in mind. So the average unit cost. How now do you determine your cost per unit? And then in the process costing, because we're manufacturing a batch or an amount or a large amount of different units, we say average unit cost, because it's not a cost of one product, but it's a cost of all the products which we manufacture in a batch. So your formula to determine that unit cost will be your input cost, which is made up of the material cost, how much did it cost you to buy those potatoes, and the labor, and then how much cost did you incur in the labor to peel off the potatoes in process A and to fry in process B and to anything. So what is the cost of that labor, and what is the cost of that of the overheads as well? What are the overheads? All the indirect cost. So if you forgot what an overhead is, you must go in and revise with for yourself what an overhead is, what are the examples of an overhead, so that when you see such in the process costing, you're not confused, you know what you're doing. And then, so is the input cost divided by the expected output. What is the expected output? Is the output that we plan to have minus the normal losses. So it will be the 100 potatoes that we bought, knowing that the 10 normal loss we're going to lose. And then that means my expected output will be 90. So that is the formula we'll use a lot. So now, before I forget, so reference to this topic is chapter 5 in your book, in your Drury book. So it's a very nice chapter, and it's self-explanatory. So don't rely on the slides, as your source or primary source of studying. Use the slides to guide your the way you're going to be studying the book. So it's chapter 5, page 107. But if you've got a latest version, it will be page 109, something like that, but it's closer to that. So now, these are 6 different examples. They're also in your Drury book. So the first scenario here, it's showing you if it's a case study in a way. I'm just going to explain it to you, and then the next slides have solutions to that. But then it's saying, should we have introduced 12,000 liters of whatever? Let's just say, I don't know, I don't have an example on top of my head now, but let's say we introduce 12,000 liters of something, or of water, or of flavorant, you know, and then we expect, and then now we don't expect any losses. You know, this is case 1 is an example of something which doesn't happen in the real world, but to build your understanding, we need to start here. And in this process, you don't expect any losses, which are normal losses. You also don't expect abnormal losses and abnormal gain, and there's no scrap value. So that means your output will be 12,000 liters. You expect to see 12,000 liters at the end of the day. When you measure that, you should still find the 12,000 liters. Moving to case number 2, should you introduce 12,000 liters again, and then you expect that there will be a loss of 2,000 liters, slash, I can even put it in percentages like the previous example. I kept saying 10% or 10%. So we can say 1/6%, which is like 16%, you know. So if you expect that you're going to incur loss of 2,000, that means your expected output will be 10,000. So it goes on like that. So in case 3 and 4, for example, we expect that we're going to have normal losses of 2,000, and then now there's an normal loss of 1,000. So this is just an example to build your thinking, but there's no way we're going to give you an assessment or an assignment where we just put this like this in a table. We're going to tell you a story, and you need to think about it and to picture it to understand what is the normal loss and what is the abnormal gain. You must pick it up from the case study. Okay, let me just move away a bit. I think they're working close to my head now. I'm sorry about that, guys. Just give me a few seconds to move away. Okay. I hope there's no noise here. The joys of working from home. Okay. All right, my apologies about that. So now we move into case 5, for example. There's 12,000 liters that are introduced in the beginning of the process, and 2,000 liters are expected to be lost, and then boom, it happens. There's an abnormal loss of 1,000, and then luckily, sometimes it's possible that your losses, depending on what you manufacture, you can sell that at a rand value. So if you can sell it at 5 rand, for example, then there's a different treatment to your formula here. Remember I said the input cost will be your material, labor, and the overheads. But then now, if it's possible that your losses, all the losses you incur, including the normal loss and the abnormal loss, if you can sell that to somebody else who can use them for a different thing, that's good. Therefore, you must deduct that cost, the 5 rand and the normal loss of 2,000 in here. Only the normal loss part, not the abnormal loss. So we'll see that in a formula. In the answer sheet for case number 5. Can I just reduce this a little bit so that we're able to see everything in the screen there? So this is the process account for example number 1, where there's no any losses expected. So on your debit side, you'll introduce that is your input cost. This could be the material, could be the labor, it could be the overheads. You just put it there. It's at 120,000, and if you're lucky to get the cost per unit, that's fine, present that. And then on the right side or on the credit side of the process account, you will present your normal loss, and then in this case it's 0. And then what was your finished goods or the completed goods? It was 12,000 at a 10 rand. How did you find this 10 rand? We use that formula, the average unit cost, which is shown below. Is the input cost 120,000, which is that, divided by the expected output of 12,000 units. Then we got the 10 rand per unit. This is the 10 rand we're presenting here. So this 10 rand is not necessarily that 10 rand. but this 10 rand is as a result of this formula. So now I want you to go do these examples. You know, they are easy and they're easy to understand. I just want to get to the example where there is an abnormal loss. So here in slide 17, remember I said you must subtract the normal loss scrap value only, not the abnormal loss. So that is a 2,000 times 5. It's taken off from the 120. It reduces the input cost because you can sell that normal loss. That means when you're planning your normal loss, you also plan that I know I'm going to sell them and receive 10,000 rands. Okay. So now let's look at number 4. So number 4, I'm just going to go back to that table to understand case number 4. Case study number 4, it says the input or the units introduced were 12,000, and then we expected to have normal losses of 2,000 and no abnormal loss, no abnormal gain, but it can be sold at a price of 5 rand. You know, there's a scrap value to that. And then therefore the output will be 10,000 because you, from the 12 that you introduce, you expect minus 2. Therefore the 10,000 is your expected output. Okay, let me go back to that slide. So therefore, you must find your average cost per unit, which will be the 120 minus the scrap value that you can receive from selling your normal losses, divided by the expected output, which is the 12 minus the 10, minus the 2,000. And there you've got your 11 rand per unit, which you're going to use to present where? On your right, on your credit. So the 11 stays there under your completed goods, and then you put the units that will complete, and there you go. And then at the end of the day, your credit side should always equal the debit side. So 120 and 110 plus 10, it equals to 120,000. So I'm going to stop there with these examples and move on to another example, because process costing has, has different scenarios, and then those are ones of the scenarios, but then now I want to move to the more complex ones. So everything I just did now was to prepare your mind, to new things, or to prepare your mind to various concepts. And now that you got that, now I will show you another complex example. Okay, let's move along. This. Also, you must know how to present your journals. Normal journals like accounting, debit and the credit. Know if is it an asset, is it a liability, is it an expense? So that's what you need to know, and then you are able to present that. But most everything goes over or goes through the process account. So if it's normal losses, that is a credit of the process account because you expect to have that in your process. So familiarize yourself with these journals as well. Okay. Okay, so then there's another concept that I want to introduce to you guys, which is the equivalent production units. So what is that? So here we are saying, because we understand that you can start with a process today and not be able to finish it by the end of today. But instead, for financial statements wise, you need to present that as though it was finished. So how do you do that? So if we say there is 120 units and the closing work in progress, out of the potatoes that you're working on, there's still 120 units that you haven't touched. And those ones are 100% complete in terms of the material and the labor. So now how do you present that as though they were finished? That is now the term equivalent production units. So your answer to that A will be this one here. So because we said it's 100% complete, it will be 120 equivalent production units for material and labor specifically. And then if I think the next slide, that's where you understand why now are we saying 100% of material and the labor? Why do we keep saying of material and labor or of material and overheads? Why do we say that? So you will see that in the next examples. But then because we understand that some people or some aspects of the input cost, which is the material, the labor, or the overheads, some people may have started peeling these 120 units. Therefore, it's not fair to say nothing has been worked on this 120 units. This is why we present the 100%, the 50%, the 60% or whatever. because maybe the conversions, the labor also started working on them. They started peeling them off, but they just did not finish. So that's why you must present it as though it was finished. So moving to number B there, if we say 120 units and they were 50% complete in terms of the material and the labor, you just say 50% of the 120, then you get 60%. If we say they were 100% complete in terms of the material, same as answer A, and 50% in terms of labor, then you strictly for labor, it will be 60. So that means the material side of things, it has done its part. It doesn't owe anything to those 120 units that we say they are still in progress. But labor still needs to do some bit of work on them because they only worked on 50% of them. Therefore, they only need to work on the 60% remaining of that 120 units. So now, here is an example. Let's see. Okay, yeah. This example, I think it's in your Drury book as well, you know, when you read chapter 5. So let's take a look there. It says Department A with no opening work in progress introduced 1,000 units into the process. Okay, and then 600 of those 1,000 units that were introduced in the process, they were fully complete, the 600. So now you need to ask yourself, what about the 400? Because we are told of the 1,000 units. What about the 400? So out of that 400, 250 are 20% complete. We're coming back to that equivalent. Then as soon as you see the percentages, know that, and you can see that they're not finished because we are told that 600 units are complete, you know, they're finished. But then the 250 is 20% complete. And then it further goes on to say, and 150 units are lost, consisting of 100 units of normal loss and 50 units of abnormal loss. This is nothing new. In the previous slides, we spoke about the abnormal loss, we spoke about the normal loss, and now we just spoke about the work in progress, you know, 20% complete. So now as you see the 20% complete, you must think of equivalent production units as though they were finished. How would I have presented them? And now here we're also told it's 600 units that are complete. So now usually in the process costing question, you will see similar information. You know, this is the information you need to find, and that's it. So this is why a lot of people, as they get good marks in their process costing, because there's only a few things that you're looking for. And once you know how to deal with them, then it's easier for you to even get full marks out of the process costing. And then here it further goes to say, losses are dictated upon completion. So that means we can only detect the losses at the end of the process. That's when we can see, oh yes, so we actually incurred the 100 units that we expected. Or maybe no, we actually incurred 250 losses, you know, what went wrong? Then you can classify, is it abnormal gain? Is it an abnormal loss? Is it a normal loss? So that kind of process of assessing how much losses we experience as a firm is done at the end of the process. Material costs are 8,000 and they're all introduced at the start of the process. This is the information that it's important for you to understand when you're doing the process costing. And conversion costs are 4,000 and are incurred uniformly throughout the process. What are the conversion costs? You know, some of you may have forgotten what this term is, but conversion costs is direct labor and overheads. So this is the term you'll see a lot. We might say conversion cost, or we might say direct labor and overheads, you know, separately, but it means the same thing. So now I want you to take your notes and your pencil because I want to teach you something here as we go along. So I'll give you like 3 seconds to just open your page and get your pencil and prepare to write something. So I hope you are ready. I'm also taking my pencil so that I can draw while I speak, you know, we're drawing together. So let's read again. Department A, so we know the process is A. It's a process for Department A, so you can just title it Process A. So now I want you to draw a straight line. Just draw a straight line, you know, from the beginning of the page to the end. depending on your handwriting. Some people like to see small things, that's fine, but draw a straight line from your left to the right. And then it says, now we're reading again, and now I'll tell you what to do on your line. So Department A, with no opening work in progress, introduce 1,000 units. So I want you to write opening. Summarize it as small as possible, because we're going to use a bit of some writing in this line. So just say opening work in progress, 0 there. And then now we are reading further. So they introduced 1,000 units. So I want you to write 1,000 units on your left at the beginning of your line. Just write 1,000 units and say in. You can say in or you can say input. That's fine. And then now say, I want you to go to read further. And it says, comma, 600 are completed, right? So when is something complete? At the end of the process, right? So put that 600 at the end, at the very end of the line, of your line. So put 600 and say complete or finished, whatever works for you. And then comma, 250 are 20% complete. You see, that is now closing work in progress. So how do you know that something is 20% complete? Because we're at the end and we are done working for the day or working for the week, whatever the timelines are. So at the end of the line as well, I want you to write closing WIP, which means closing work in progress. So say 250 and then in brackets put 20% for yourself. So why are we doing this timeline? I want you to visualize whatever you just read, because for process costing, it might work better for you. And sometimes I might give you 1 mark or 2 marks, you know, for just analyzing this story for yourself, because this way it helps you to see what you are working with. Other than going back into the exam, you are going back and reading the same thing. So now it's nicer that you put it in a timeline, because it's only process costing, not in all the questions, but then in process costing, it works better. So then now it says, and 150 units are lost, consisting of 100 units of normal loss and 50 units of abnormal loss. So now I want you to split, you know, because, and then they say losses are detected upon completion. So this losses story, we need to fill it in there at the end of the timeline that we just draw now, the line that we just draw. So go to the end there and say NL for normal loss, and then put the 100. And then say AB for abnormal loss and put the 50. This is for yourself, remember? And then add everything up. So you've got 600 at the end, you've got 250, you've got 100, you've got 50. So that equates 1,000. So you know that your timeline is balanced. You know, you've analyzed about the full 1,000 units that were introduced at the beginning of the process. Can you see? Right? So let's move on. Also, okay, because now the second tick says losses are detected upon completion. You can just write there, you know, just put a note on top of your line saying losses detection. Anything to remind you that losses are detected at the end. And then now moving to the third tick, it says material costs are 8,000, all introduced at the start of the process, and conversion costs are 4,000 and are incurred uniformly throughout the process. Okay, there's a question, yes.
Hey.
Fellow, you are noted.
Hey.
Fellow. Fellow, you are noted. Okay, maybe I should continue. Maybe he or she just pressed the hand up button by mistake. So I'll just carry on. So we were at the, okay, so yeah, I was saying these conversion costs are incurred uniformly throughout the process. So I just want you now to draw, like, you know, it must not be too visible. Make it as light as possible. Just draw a C or a combining sign for you to say, and say CC, to show that conversion cost, which is the direct labor or the labor, direct labor in this case, because it purely says conversion cost. So the direct labor and the overheads is incurred uniformly. So just show that CC, or at the end of everything, at the bottom, just, you know, draw a big line to include everything that this is incurred as and when is needed. So that means they will ask the labor people or people to come work in those potatoes as and when they know that we need them. So if they don't need them, they're not going to work. That's what they uniformly throughout the process means. So then now the question says, calculate the value of the work in progress, completed units, and abnormal losses at the end of the financial period. So you need the value. So how now do you get to this value? So then now I want you to draw a table. So in the table, or before you actually draw the table up, you know, just at the beginning of your page, I want you to write elements. So this is what you will use, you know, going forward. You know, this is the best way of you obtaining these marks and making sure that you don't miss any marks. So you're gonna write elements. Under in elements, this is now where you're gonna present the materials. So write materials underneath elements and conversion costs. Depending on how the information is given to you, you might need maybe to split direct labor and overheads should you be given the information that way. But in this case, we're just gonna say materials, number 1, and number 2, we will say conversion costs. And then after elements, now for the next column, we're gonna put in cost, or say current cost rather, because it's possible to have previous cost. So we have the cost there. Materials, we've got 8,000, and for conversion costs, we have 4,000. So just match it along the 2 elements. And then now just put in the next column, say completed, which it was talking about the completed units. Okay, next column, we know we've got normal losses here. In the next column, put normal losses. Next column, say abnormal losses. And we know that there are other units that are still work in progress. So now say closing WIP equivalent. So you must say closing WIP equivalent or equivalent closing WIP. You can't just say closing